Hello everyone, welcome to today's session. And today we'll be discussing the NCERT exercises for the chapter evolution. This is the disclaimer. Now let's understand what are the objectives of today's session. So today we will understand the basic concepts related to the chapter evolution by discussing NCERT exercises. So these exercises are based on certain concepts. We will discuss these concepts by walking through NCERT exercises. Okay, so we'll be discussing the questions related to the chapter evolution. Let's begin with this session. So let's start with the first question. So first question is explain antibiotic resistance observed in bacteria in light of Darwinian selection theory. So let's have a look at the answer. Okay. So now antibiotic resistance in bacteria, this is an example of Darwinian selection. Okay. So but this is induced by human activities. So Darwinian selection always favors individual with beneficial variations. So those characteristics or those variations which are beneficial for that organism or that species, this is selected by the nature. Okay, these are transmitted to the next generation. These variations, they give specific features to that organisms which help them to survive in that environment. Now nature selects these organisms which are better adapted to survive in that particular conditions, and rest of the organism or the other species, they will not survive. Example is antibiotic resistance in bacteria. This is the prime example of this process. Now, you can grow microorganism on an agar plate. You can add the antibiotic in this agar plate, which is penicillin. Okay. Now, the sensitive bacteria will die and the resistant bacteria will survive. So, suppose there is a population of bacteria and this bacterial population has already built-in variations. These variations might have arisen due to mutations. Okay. So now you added penicillin in that media, means you changed the environment. Okay. So in some bacteria in which there was a variation that provided penicillin resistance, these bacteria will survive and rest of the bacteria will perish. So resistance bacteria, they will survive, they will grow in number. So these are selected by the nature because they were able to adapt to the change in the environment. This is a direct observation of natural selection at work. Okay. Now here the bacteria, okay, the resistant bacteria that is surviving due to chance mutation in the genes. Because of this mutation, a new characteristics, you can say, arose in that bacterial population, which was penicillin resistance. Okay. Now resistant bacteria which are now selected, they will multiply faster. Clear? Or you can say this character will be transferred to the next generation. It will be inherited in the next generation. And the number of these resistant bacteria will also increase. So this shows advantage in struggle for the existence. Okay. So this process demonstrates an advantage in the struggle for existence. The resistant bacteria are better equipped to survive and reproduce in an environment with the antibiotics. Next question, find out from newspapers and popular science articles any new fossils, discoveries, or controversies about the evolution. Okay. So let's have a look at the answer for this question. So first is fossil discoveries and evolution controversies. Let's discuss about this. These are the integral processes to the scientific process. Okay. Now dinosaur fossils, they reveal reptile evolution in the Jurassic period. Clear? So dinosaur fossils have provided insights into reptile evolution. Now, this led to discoveries about the bird and the mammal evolution as well. Clear? So, finding this information helps us to understand how birds and mammals have changed and developed over time. Now, two unusual fossils from China sparked bird evolution debate. Okay. So, these fossils, when we studied these fossils, they helped us to understand the evolution of the birds. So, one of the fossils' name was Confuciusornis. Okay, this was early crow-sized birds from the Cretaceous period. This was discovered in China. Okay, clear? Now let's move on to the next question. My question is, attempt giving a clear definition of the term species. So let's have a look at the answer. Now, species can be defined as a group of organisms which have the capability to interbreed in order to produce fertile offerings. Okay, clear? So, species is basically a group of organisms which can interbreed, and they are reproductively isolated from other such groups. Means the members of the different species, they cannot interbreed. So, member of a species, they share common characteristics and a common gene pool as well, because they can interbreed among themselves, and which makes them reproductively isolated from other species. So this is the definition of the species. Let's move on to the next question. Now, question is, try to trace the various components of human evolution. Okay, so you have to talk about the brain size and the function, the skeletal structure, and dietary preferences, whether they were vegetarian or non-vegetarian. What was the brain size in cc? Okay, so let's have a look at the answer for this question. Now, the various components of human evolution are as follows. Okay, first we'll talk about, or we will consider brain capacity. We'll also consider the posture, whether they were erect or not. We'll also consider the food or the dietary preference and some other important features as well. So this is a table that shows you, okay, the different, you can say, how the humans have evolved. Okay, it is also showing the brain capacity in the different forms of the humans. Okay, they're telling about the posture, food, and the some other features. Okay, so first one, the Dryopethicus africans. Okay, so the brain capacity was around 350 to 400 cc or centimeter cube. Okay, how was their posture? So they were knuckle walker. They walked on their knuckles. They walked similar to the gorillas. Like gorillas and chimpanzee, they are knuckle walkers. And they were more ape-like. So you can see they are even walking like apes. Okay, what was their dietary preference? So they were vegetarian. They feeded on soft fruits and leaves. Okay, what were the other features? Okay, they had large canines and arms and legs. Okay, arms and legs are of equal size, and they have large canines. Let's talk about Ramapethicus. So brain capacity was around 300 to 350 cc. They were semi-erect and they were more man-like. So you should remember this. Ramapethicus was more man-like as compared to Dryopethicus. What was their dietary preference? Ramapethicus, seeds and nuts. Okay. Now their canines were small while molars were large. Okay. These teeth, evolution of teeth also depends on their diet. Okay. Now next one is Australopithecus africanus. Brain size is 352 cc, 450 cc. Okay. They had full erect posture. Height was around 105 meter. They were herbivorous and ate fruits. They hunted with stone weapons, lived at trees, canines and incisors were small. Okay, now let's move on. Next one is Homo habilis. Okay, brain capacity was 350 to 800 cc. They were also fully erect. Height was 1.5 meter. Now they were carnivorous. They used to feed on meat. Canines were small and they were the first tool makers. So again, you should remember these. Who were the first tool makers? Homo habilis. Then came the Homo erectus. Brain capacity is 900 cc. Posture, they were fully erect. Height was 1.5 to 1.8 meters. So you can see the height is increasing. They were omnivorous, means they can feed on both plant-based product and as well as meat. Then what were the other features? They use stone and bone tools for hunting game. So now you can see the brain capacity has increased. They have got a little bit intellectual. Okay, and now they are using stone and bone tools for hunting as well. Okay, even Homo habilis, they were also the first tool makers. Now Homo neanderthals, brain capacity is 1400 cc. They were fully erect. Okay, height was 1.5 to 1.66 meter. They were omnivorous. They were cave dwellers. They used to live in caves, and they used hides to protect their bodies. Hide means animal. It is made up from animal skin, and buried their dead. So they were following this ritual of burying their dead. So again, they were more intellectual than the previous forms of the humans. Now let's move on. Then came the Homo sapiens fossilis. Brain capacity is 400 to 1500 cc. Okay, they were fully erect, posture with height of 1.8 meter. They were omnivorous. What were the other features? They had strong jaw with teeth close together. They were cave dwellers, used to live in caves. They made paintings and carvings in the caves. So you can see today also some cave paintings here. These were made by these, you can say Homo sapiens fossilis. They developed a culture and were called first modern man. So again, you should remember who were the first modern man? Homo sapiens fossilis. Okay, so you can see they are living in caves. They are even making paintings and carvings, and they developed a culture as well. Okay, now next one is Homo sapiens sapiens. Brain capacity 1300 to 1500 cc. Okay, so in the modern day man, the brain capacity is little bit less. Okay, they are also fully erect. Height is 1.5 to 1.8 meter. They are omnivorous. Now they are the living modern men with high intelligence. They are quite intellectual. Now they developed arts, culture, language, speech, etc. They cultivated crops and domesticated animals. Okay, this is clear. Now let's move on to the next question. The next question is, you have to find out through internet and popular science articles whether animals other than man has self-consciousness. Okay, so let's have a look at the answer. Okay, so animals, examples of animals with self-consciousness. Obviously, human is one example. Human is also an animal. Now, many animals other than humans possess self-consciousness. For example, dolphin, they demonstrate self-consciousness. They are considered to be highly intelligent. Okay, they have complex thinking skills. Okay, like problem solving skills as well. Okay, they are highly intelligent. Okay, now dolphins have sense of self and can recognize others as well. Okay, so they are quite intelligent, you can say. Now they communicate through whistles, okay, tail slapping and body movements as well. So you can see they are communicating also. Clear? Means they are quite intellectual. Other animals with self-consciousness include crows, parrots, chimpanzees, gorillas, and orangutans as well. Next question, you have to list 10 modern day animals, and using the internet sources, you have to link it to a corresponding ancient fossil. Okay, you have to name both. Clear? So you know that evolution is occurring. Evolution is a very gradual process. Okay, it takes millions of years for the evolution of a species, and the present day organisms, they are similar to the organism which existed millions of years ago. Okay, means there is a common ancestor. Clear? And number of species have evolved from this common ancestor. They are the descendants of this common ancestor. So let's have a look at the answer. So the modern day animal and the ancient fossils are listed in the following table. So this is the table you can see. This is the modern day animal and the ancient fossils have been listed. So crocodile, ancient fossil is Dinosuchus. For the horse, it is Eophippus. For the horse. For the dog, it is Leptocycon. Camel, it is Protylopus. Then elephant, it is Morathus. For whale, it is Protococcus. Fish, it is Anandaspis. For tetrapods, it is Ithiostega. And then for bat, it is Parchanocystis. And for giraffe, it is Pelagotragus. Clear? So these are the ancient fossils for these modern day animals. Clear? So you can easily use the internet to find out the information regarding this. Okay, so you can see evolution is occurring. These modern day animals, they are quite similar to the organism which existed millions of years ago. Okay, by studying fossils, we can tell about the evolution. So fossil or studying fossil is the kind of is providing you the evidence of the evolution, that evolution is occurring. Okay, study of fossil is known as paleontology. Okay. Let's move on to the next question. The next question is, you have to describe one example of the adaptive radiation. Clear? So let's have a look at the answer. Now, adaptive radiation example is a process where new species form from single lineage through natural selection. This is basically the definition of the adaptive radiation. Clear? Or we can say the formation of a new species from a single or from a common ancestor through natural selection. Clear? So there is a common ancestor and the species are evolving from this common ancestor. because they are adapting to a particular habitat. Okay, clear? Now, Darwin finches in Galapagos Island, this is the prime example of adaptive radiation. So there was an ancestral species. Okay, from this ancestral species, you can say a number of different species evolved. So there was diversification. So one ancestral species quickly diversified into many different species, each with a unique beak shape and size. Okay. Okay, now the single species evolved into multiple species with different beaks and various feeding habits as well. All of this happened in the Galapagos Island. Okay, all these different species, they were adapting to different kind of habitats. Okay, single ancestor species is rapidly diversifying into multiple new species, each adapted to different ecological niche. So that's why Darwin finches on Galapagos Island, they serve as a classical example of adaptive radiation. Okay, in adaptive radiation, there will always be a common ancestor. There is adaptive radiation in the Australian marsupials as well. Okay. Clear? So all of these Darwin finches adapted from single seed eating ancestors to insectivorous finches. Okay, and some were blood sucking finches as well. Okay, so you can say the ancestor, okay, it was seed eating, it ate seeds, but over the time some of these evolved. Okay, their beak size and the shape changed, so now they were able to eat insects as well, and some were able to feed on the blood from other birds as well. Okay, this all happened because they had to survive in different environments with different food sources. Okay, this is an image showing you variety of beaks of finches that Darwin found in the Galapagos Island. So you can see there is the difference in the beak size and shape of the Darwin finches. The next question, can we call human evolution as adaptive radiation? Okay, so let's discuss this question. Okay, so human evolution and adaptive radiation, let's talk about this. So human evolution is not adaptive radiation. Okay, simply because it involves the rapid diversification of a species into many different forms to fill various ecological niche, but this is not observed in human evolution. Human evolution, on the other hand, is a more gradual process of change and development over the time within a single lineage. Okay, and there is no diversification observed here. Okay, like in Darwin finches, there was one ancestral species, and from this ancestral species, various different Darwin finches evolved. So there was a rapid diversification of the ancestor into different species, but this is not the case in the humans. So human evolution is a very gradual process. It is a slow and a steady process of change over a long period. Okay, now this represents anagenesis. What do you mean by anagenesis? Okay, so it means where one species slowly transformed into another over time. Okay, so it is a type of evolution where a single species gradually transforms into a completely new species, with original species disappearing. Okay, clear? Now here in human evolution, multiple species are not produced rapidly. Okay, clear? So that's why human evolution is not considered as an example of adaptive radiation. The next question, using various resources such as the school library or the internet and discussions with your teacher, you have to trace the evolutionary stages of any one animal, say horse. Okay, so you can use internet, you can use your school library, okay, and you have to trace the evolutionary stages of any animal, and they have given example of horse. You can trace the evolutionary stages of a horse. Okay, so this is the kind of activity for you. This will help you understand the process of evolution. That is, it is a gradual process, and how the changes are occurring. These changes are occurring because the organism or that species is adapting to the changes in the environment. Okay, so they are developing certain characteristics, certain features which help them to survive. They are adapting to the environment. If the species can adapt, it will survive. If the species is not able to adapt to the environment, then it will not survive. Okay, clear? And these variations, they you can say develop, and these variations, they are accumulated over the generations, and they lead to the formation of a new species. Clear? So let's have a look at the answer. Let's talk about the evolution of the horse. What are the evolutionary stages? Okay, we are focusing specifically on the evolutionary stages of the horse here. So this will help you understand how species adapt and change over time. So starting with Eophius during the Eocene period. Clear? So what happened there? Okay, so evolution of horse started with Eophippus. This is the ancestor of the horse. Clear? During the Eocene period. This existed in the Eocene period. Now, what were the changes in the horse during the evolution? There was increase in the body size. Then there was elongation of head and neck region. Okay, there was increase in length of limbs and the feet. Okay, there was reduction of the lateral digits. There was enlargement of the third functional toe as well. And there was strengthening of the back. Development of brains and sensory organs as well. Okay, there was increase in teeth complexity for grass feeding as well. Okay, so these were the changes in the horse during the evolution. So see, all these features are they are developing, and they are being inherited to the next generation also. Okay, so there was a variation. This variation, you can say, occurred, and this variation gave rise to a new characteristics. Okay, these characteristics help these organisms, in this case horse, to survive in that particular condition. Okay, so evolution of horse is represented as, so here you can see, starting with the Eophippus, which existed in the Eocene period. Then you have the Mesohippus in the Oligocene period. Then you have the Merychippus in the Miocene period. Then you have the Pleiohippus in the Pliocene period. Then you have the Equus in the Pleistocene period. Okay, so this image represents the evolution of the horse. Okay, so there was a change in the size and the brain capacity and the teeth complexity in the horse. Okay, let's start with the Eophippus. So this had a short head and neck. Okay, it had 4 functional toes with splints in the limbs. Okay, short crowned molars for grinding the plants. Okay, then Mesohippus. Okay, it was taller than Eohippus. So you can see the body size is increasing. It has 3 toes in each foot. Okay, earlier the Eophippus has 4 foot functional toes. Now here it has 3 toes in each foot. Then Merychippus. The size was around 100 centimeter. Okay. It has 3 toes but ran on 1 toe only. Okay, side toes didn't touch the ground, and molars adapted for grass chewing. Again, you can see there is a complex change in the teeth as well. The teeth complexity as well. So they are adapting to the environment, and they are evolving. Now next is Pleohippus. Height was around 108 centimeter. That single functional toe with the splints resembled modern horse. Okay, and then there was Equus. Now it has 1 toe in each foot. Incisors for cutting the grasses and molars for grinding the food. So here you can see incisors and molars have developed. So they have more complex teeth. Clear? So with this, we have discussed the NCERT exercises for the chapter evolution. Okay, so I hope your concepts are clear now. Okay, so with this, we end this session. I hope the session was quite knowledgeable for you. We'll meet you in the next session. Thank you very much for listening.